Hey, it's Amy from Following Hawks, and I'm back for another round of Amy Answers Questions. But you might notice I'm in a different location today, and that's because the spirits out at the lake here have asked me to come out today. And you may hear some construction noise in the background. Hopefully it's not too bad, but that's why they asked me to come, and I'll tell you more about that after we talk about the question. It is quite chilly here today, so that's why I'm bundled up, but the sun is shining and that always makes it feel like spring. So this week's question came on last week's video, and it was about what spirits you do want to invite to your home. If there's a whole bunch of spirits you don't want in your home, which ones do you want? And the question says, can you talk about why we shouldn't invite spirit beings to our land or to our home? I thought communicating with the ancestors, for instance, they were good to have near us. Regarding clearing spirits, I'm sure I've called to ancestors and to Faerie to be present. I thought I was inviting in a guide or teacher. Is it appropriate to ask for spirit to come? And yes, it's totally appropriate to ask spirit to come. And you know, if there's one thing you learn from watching my videos, I hope that what you take away is that what happens in your home, what happens on the land is always up to you. You always get to decide, and you have the power to decide and call in benevolent spirits. I mean, you have the ability to call in malevolent spirits. It's all up to you and what you want in your house. And so the question would be, like, who are these spirits? What spirits might you want in your house? Which ones are already there? And, you know, it really depends on your home and your property. It depends on what energies you've cultivated, what energy may have been cultivated by people who lived in the house before. And we'll start with the spirits of the land, because they're just inherently on your land. They live on the land with you. And that being said, some of them are more chatty, more intent on making their presence known than others. Most of the time, spirits of the land have not had good interactions with the humans that live there, or the humans have just ignored them altogether. So they're accustomed to that, and they just ignore us back. And that's fine. If you don't want to interact with them, they're gonna go about their business and you're gonna go about yours. But things get a lot better when you work together, because they do exist on the same plane of existence as us. They do inhabit the land just like we do. And so when you start engaging them and asking them what would make it better here, they start telling you, they start showing you. They help clean things up if there are any problems. So the spirits of the land come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. You know, the main one I always ask to speak with when I first connect with a piece of land is the keeper of the land. And this is a spirit that covers a really wide range. It's usually like your whole neighborhood, or you know, sometimes just like a whole large area of land. And the keeper of the land is the one that really knows if there's a problem, like who are the other players in the neighborhood, what's going on there. So you can always ask that spirit for more information if you want to know more about what's happening in your neighborhood or on your property specifically. Snow's kind of deep here. Now, there's many other kinds of spirits. It really is only limited to your imagination what might be there, but definitely things like fairies and gnomes. Some places have much more of that activity than others. Just kind of depends on the location and whether or not you're engaging them and encouraging them. Sometimes they're inside your house and outside. Sometimes they're just outside the house. Okay, I had to find a place to sit. Too snowy and icy out there to walk and talk and not watch where my feet were going. Hopefully the construction noise is not too noisy in the background. So, okay, so what spirits can or should you call into your house? And again, the short answer is it's up to you. But you're really going to want to use your discernment, because there are all kinds of energies who have agendas outside of our own. So you just want to make sure they're in alignment and in agreement with what your agenda is for your home and your space. And what do I mean by agendas? So, for instance, a situation I had quite a few years ago now was that I had an ancestor that was around me, that was with me, that was a very nice ancestor. She didn't bother me at all. I enjoyed having her around. But after a handful of years, I was noticing that I couldn't quite seem to get anything done. I couldn't get any projects off the ground. I had like the interest and the energy to work on something, and then I couldn't do it. And it felt like it was a force that was keeping me from it, because everything within me wanted to do these things. And that went on for a while before I finally tuned in to really see like what was happening, where was this energy coming from? And I found that it was coming from that ancestor. She, nice as she was, actually hadn't crossed over. And so there were beliefs and things that she had from her own lifetime that she was putting on to me. And some of those beliefs were just that it was my job to stay home and care for my family, and not to have dreams or ambitions or goals or anything that I want to do outside of the house. And as soon as I had that conversation with her and let her know, like, my life is not her life and she doesn't get to make those decisions, and helped her to get crossed over, all of that energy left. So that's what I mean by using your discernment. Don't randomly or indiscriminately call on your ancestors. Call on your healed and healthy ancestors. Call on the ones who have crossed over, integrated whatever lessons they needed to in their lives, and they're really a part of the fabric of your ancestral heritage, and they're engaged and they're interested in helping their lineage and those in their lineage live good, healthy lives and become good ancestors themselves. So that's just an example of sure, absolutely call on your ancestors, but be specific and be discerning when you do. Obviously, a lot of people like to call on beings that they know from their religion, archangels, just angels in general, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, those types of figures who actually exist, their energy exists outside of religion, but they're comfortable if you grew up in a religion and came to know these beings through that way. And maybe you didn't grow up with them, but you've come to know them in your spiritual journey and feel comfortable calling on them. Those are beings that you want to call in as well. But the same thing can be true. The reality is that a lot of energies, especially the really well-known energies, symbols, ideas, have been corrupted over time. They're just, other energies who don't have our best interest in mind may attempt to come to you as those beings. And so again, discernment is really, really important, and really asking questions when these beings first step forward and identify themselves. And, one of the most important questions is, are you a being that's connected to the light? And because if they're not, they have to tell you. So if they're masquerading in any way, that's the fastest way to know, because usually they just disappear or run away. They'll tell you no. Because of your free will, they have to be truthful with you. You have the ability to decide who you engage with. And so don't get so overwhelmed with, oh my goodness, this being is coming to me, which of course these high vibrational beings will come to you if you call on them. But that you don't go through the steps of discerning who you're communicating with. Now, what's interesting, in my last video, I talked about timelines a little bit, and this is where this can come into play as well. I have, for instance, worked with the crossed over and healed and healthy version of Nikola Tesla. I've also interacted with his not crossed over version. He was a time traveler. He knew how to do this. He was doing this energetic work and moving through timelines. And again, all time is happening at the same time. And so it took me a couple of times to figure out that there was something that was off about him. I couldn't quite put my finger on it initially, because he felt the same, he looked the same, he talked the same, everything was the same. But there seemed to be some key pieces of information he didn't know. And then ultimately, he was feeling sick and exhausted. A healed and healthy spirit should not feel sick and exhausted. And it was then that I said, which Nikola Tesla is this? Is this a version of you from your timeline that's still alive? And he said, yes. And so again, then that's your choice. In my case, I just said, that's not really the being that I want to interact with, and sent him on his way. But you could interact with him just knowing that you're working with a being in another timeline. So that's what I mean. There's lots of perfectly nice energies and spirits out there that you can work with, but that maybe aren't quite what you think they are. So I feel like, you know, as we continue in our spiritual journey and on our spiritual path, like this is one of the most important skills for us to learn, is discernment. And this is why I teach, really, when you first are wanting to tune in, to protect your energy in light from source and set an intention that if a being is not crossed over, is not healed and healthy, that they can't come into your space. You can see them, you know they're there, you can talk to them, have conversations with them, but they can't actually get into your energetic space and affect your energy. Now, of course, you may have all kinds of other energies on the land in your home. Like I mentioned, fairies, gnomes, animal spirits, all types of things like that. And again, these spirits exist on a frequency. They, you know, for the most part are good, well-meaning, healthy energies to have around. But, you know, there's a lot of those energies also that are trickster energies. And so you just have to know that if you're engaging and communicating with them. Usually more than trickster, they're like funny, you know, they might play a joke on you or talk in rhymes or riddles, and you just kind of have to try and figure out their meaning and figure out what messages they're sending you. But they can be all very good kind of protector energies to have around your home. If you have a garden, the fairies for sure are in your garden, and they love it if you actually give them credit for the work that they're doing in your garden. Don't think that it's all you. They're doing a lot of work out there. And then the last group of spirits I want to share about are guardian spirits. And I have a whole video that walks you through, and actually is a guided meditation, to walk you through calling these spirits to your property. But I feel like they are some of the best spirits that you do want to call in and want to have on your land, because they're kind of like the energetic security team that you can have on watch when you're busy and you don't want to spend all your time constantly clearing the house of energies or looking around or trying to figure out, you know, what was that thing that you just saw out of the corner of your eye. You can just call on your guardian spirits and say, take care of that. I don't want that here. And they're like the bouncers for your house. So if you haven't worked with guardian spirits or called them in for your home, go check out that video to do that. All right, the construction noise has calmed down a bit. I think that maybe the crew, I timed it right, or the spirits helped me out. I think they're on a lunch break because it got quiet. So let me show you what the spirits out here wanted me to come do. Because, you know, when you work with the land, it's easy to think you're going to spend all of your time out in the beautiful, pristine forest communing with the nature spirits. And that certainly does happen. But more often, you're asked to come in and help hold energetic space, do energy work in places where difficult things are happening. And that's what's happening here today. So right now I'm standing in the middle of Flathead Lake, and yes, the middle of it. This is all covered with water in the summertime, but in the winter they open the dam at the other end of the lake, let the lake levels go down, and this is a big sandy or snowy walking beach. You might be able to see the sun reflecting off the lake way back there in the distance. So what's happening out here is that, if you can see the island behind me, it's actually private property, and the only way to reach that private property is a boat from the shore over there. And so the people a number of years ago that bought this land built a giant bridge to connect the land with the island. And while they thought they had the proper permissions to do that, there were other agencies that disagreed. They've been fighting about it in court for, I don't know, a decade, and have been ordered to take the bridge out multiple times, and they haven't. All of a sudden this week, the bridge is going away. So I found out about it yesterday, and the spirits were pestering me, like, come out here, come out here, come out here. I thought the bridge was already gone. But I got out here and I realized what was going on. They are still removing the bridge. There's a ton of jackhammering going on, and the spirits are wound up. They have no idea what's going on, and they wanted somebody to come talk to them and help them. And so I'm sure the call went out to many people, but I heard them. So here I am. So I'm not sure how well you can see the bridge. Just the approach is left way over there. But they've got all of the kind of pylons along here still to take out, and these ones they've removed. But the The spirits were very, very agitated. It's very noisy. Like I said, they must be taking a lunch break right now because it quieted down. But when I came out and asked them what they wanted, they're mad. Nobody told them that this was going to happen. And so they wanted someone to tell them what was going on. So whenever I'm called out by the spirits to a particular place, I always ask ahead of time, what do you need me to bring? What do you want? You know, sometimes it's a singing bowl, sometimes it's crystals, sometimes it's an offering, water, all kinds of things. But today, all they wanted were my two large kind of like land working crystals. So one is a large amethyst point that I always call like a surgical tool. It's really good at doing surgery on the land when that's needed. And the other one is my pre-night skull, and he is a grid worker. He works with the grids. And so all they wanted me to do was come out here, bring the crystals, set the crystals on the land to help calm the energy, help repair some of the damage. And then they just wanted me to explain what was going on. And so I told them. So if this ever happens to you, where you're just feeling really called to a place, but you're not sure, like, what do they want? What are they saying to me? It's okay if you can't quite understand or you're not quite sure, just go to that place. There is a lot that happens, a lot of energy exchange that happens between our body and the land. And so sometimes all they're asking is for you to come join them, for you to go out there so that your energy can be a calming or a healing force that is needed in a place at a certain time. You don't always have to know all the details, know all the behind the scenes information. Sometimes they'll tell you like this. We got a whole rush of little gnome spirits that were like, what in the hell? But that's not always the case. Sometimes you just go and you just sit, and after a little bit of time, you feel like it's done, and that's it. All right, postscript, also my trash haul. I was walking back to my car. Oh geez, the winds are probably really loud. There we go. I was walking back to my car and was just thinking to myself, how funny, there's such a big troll army out here. Wonder why. And they popped in and they were like, trolls live under bridges. Oh, touche. Of course you do. So, yeah, their home's getting destroyed. They don't have a bridge anymore. So you'd be pretty bent out of shape if somebody started jackhammering on your house without warning as well. All right, well, that's it for this week's episode of Amy Answers Questions. If you have a question for me you'd like me to answer, put it down in the comments and I'll either answer it there or I'll answer it on a future video. Have a